Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at a 16 Brackenhide that we two-chested. So I apologize for if my voice sounds different or if the acoustics of my room sound different. I moved in between making videos, so I'm in a new room, so it might sound a little bit weird. Let me know in the comments down below if that's the case. I forgot to show my talents going into this dungeon, but I will say I will link a Twitch channel in the description down below. Not just my Twitch channel, mine's down there as well, but somebody else's. His name is Twix, and you probably know him if you know Shadow Priest content. He does a lot of Mythic Plus on Twitch, right? He's constantly playing Shadow Priest on Twitch in Mythic Plus, and he has a command in his Twitch chat. It's !talents. Go do that in his Twitch chat, and you'll get a string that you can import. And that talent build is the talent build that I'm running in this key, and that for the foreseeable future I plan on running in most keys. There probably will be a little bit of things that I change, but on a key by key basis. Okay, so that first pack, I sent all my CDs. That's something that people are getting better at, I think, in general, but is one thing that is not the clearest. Like if you don't play very, very competitively, then that's something that you might not realize. You should be sending your CDs basically on cooldown as often as possible, unless there's a good reason to hold them. Like, for example, in this key, for this first section, all the way until the first boss, send your cooldowns, as long as you're not doing like weird pulls and planning your cooldowns around those. You should be sending your cooldowns as soon as they come up, because you're going to just have a bunch of packs that are like 10 plus mobs every single time, and any of those packs are worth using your CDs on. There's not like a single pack that's like way more important for you to have CDs for until you get to the pack right before the last boss, or the first boss. So if you're using your cooldowns on cooldown, and your damage is similar to our damage, and you're in a key that's of like similar difficulty to ours, there are a lot of little variables that go into this, obviously, but your cooldown should come up right before that first boss, right when you get to the pack before the first boss, I should mention. And it's going to be really tempting to just send your cooldowns because you're on a pretty big pack that has a War Scourge in it, and it's worth killing, right? But I implore you, and you'll see why, but I implore you to save your cooldowns for the first boss. It's very similar to Theater of Pain from Shadowlands, where there's going to be 3 targets for you to hit the entire time. And Shadow Priest is very, very good for that this season especially. So right here, I sent my CDs, and I told him to chain this pull into another pack. We've got like 10 plus mobs in this pack. I should be shadow crashing soon. There we go. It goes out. And then things like this, a lot of these claw fighters will run away. I can completely ignore this guy. He has both my dots on him, so my auspicious spirits will take care of him as he runs away. And I should be focusing on these guys who are not running away in the middle, so that hopefully my tendrils will focus them more and do the AoE damage that the void tendrils do. Their little Mind Seer cast. It's helpful if those are focused on masses of mobs rather than individual mobs that are running away. There are times that you're not going to be able to get both dots on every single target, and there is a little bit of nuance to what you should be putting your dots on. These Rot Chanting Totems I'll mention, those are not crazy high priority targets as long as you're in like a tyrannical key and it's not super, super high. Pretty sure as soon as you start getting into like mid 20s or like low 20s, depending on how your gear is and things, once you get into high fortified keys, those Rot Chanting Totems are going to become a much bigger deal than they are currently, at least in this key. So you can see this Decay Speaker is the one who casts that Rot Chanting Totem, and the Death Knight drags the mob on top of it so that we start hitting it. Although this one's the Rage Storming mob, so you kind of don't want to have that guy on top of it, but not a huge deal. The melee should be focusing down, cleaving down the totem probably at this point, and then focusing down probably the War Scourge because it has the most HP. So then something I'll mention, I did mention already, like there's some nuance to what you want to put your dots on. That's not really a thing in these packs, because if you look at the HP pools of these packs, I'll give an example when we get up to this next pack here. Something like we're getting this pot that has the disease dispel extra action button on it. This pack right here, you see there's one guy with 5 million HP and the rest have about 3. All of these guys have very similar amounts of health. It's going to take about the same amount of time to kill all of them, with the War Scourge being the one that's going to take the longest, obviously, right? Because he has the most health. This is what I was talking about, by the way. Both of my CDs are up, Power Infusion and Void Eruption, but I'm not sending them on this pack, even though I want to, just because they're going to be very important for the next boss, and it's very important that on the next boss, people save CDs, because the bosses are very deadly, especially on this high Tyrannical key, and you'll see why. This Gash Tooth guy, very scary, that's why we gave him a skull. This Hat Claw, also pretty scary, that's why it gets the X. And then you want to focus this Earth Bolting Trick Totem guy last. Observe, this Gash Frenzy, this dot it leaves on you, huge, hurts really, really bad. So this is why you save your CDs. You want to get a Shadow Crash onto all of them, probably a Halo too, and then this Marked for Butchery, I'll pause. So right now we have a mage right here who's marked for Butchery. Watch this mage, he's going to blink away, and you'll see that this, what's his name, Gash Tooth, will just teleport to him instantly and keep obliterating him. And then he'll blink again, and he'll teleport again. So watch, he blinks away, he teleports to him. He blinks away, teleports to him again. So you can't run away from that guy, is basically what I'm saying, which means that you have to kill him as fast as possible, or he's going to kill you. As a Shadow Priest, you have not a ton of ways to get away from that guy. Like, you can't just bop yourself, for example, and take no damage. If you have a Holy Paladin, like we do, your Holy Paladin could bop you, but you can't bop yourself. So that's probably a good time to disperse, unless you have talked with your healer about what people are going to do. And then let me pause for this Savage Charge. If your healer is telling you they got you, then don't worry about dispersing. Because it is very, like, if you look at the damage, it's very important that you are not in dispersion and not casting, because you're the main damage in this boss fight. Oh, I was pausing for this Savage Charge. Wow, what a great timing. So we need to kick this Greater Healing thing. That's very important. But then the Savage Charge, it's on me right now. I'm fixated. You can see these eyeballs above my head. This Savage Charge needs to be soaked by somebody, preferably not you. Preferably the tank. If the tank can soak this, you're in good status, right? Just don't move. Don't be running back and forth trying to get behind the tank. Just stand here, ask your tank to soak it, let him get in the way. Or if you have a Holy Paladin, they can bubble and get in the way. You could also, worst case scenario, just disperse and run over to the side and let it hit you, but those are, like I said, kind of worst case scenario things. Most of the time you should just let the tank do it. Okay, so then we're focusing down Hat Claw. I'm pretty sure Hat Claw is the one who throws something every so often. Puts a dot on people, or maybe it's the Blade Storm one. Either way, Hat Claw needs to die second. Yeah, it does do Blade Storm, so just make sure you're kicking these Earth Bolts every so often. This is more of a group thing. Shadow Priests aren't going to be kicking super often. It's like a 45-second cooldown, so you should mostly be saving your kick for times that no one else has a kick and something very important needs to be kicked. You shouldn't just be sending it on every little thing. Although I'm also not trying to say never kick anything, because you should be, in general, as anyone who plays any video game, you should be trying to make things easier for the people on your team, right? So you should, in general, be trying to kick things so that your team doesn't have to. You'll take that responsibility on yourself, right? But in the scenario where other people have shorter cooldowns and you're the one with the long cooldown, it's important that you are ready for moments like that where people don't have kicks and you're the only one with a kick, and something's going to cast something that will kill you all. it's very good that you're ready to kick in that moment, right? Hopefully that makes sense what I'm saying. I'm not trying to say never kick. I am trying to say kick when you can, kick things that are important, is basically what I'm trying to say. So these packs in this area are more of what I was talking about earlier, where you have things that have like 3 million HP, but then you got a bunch of things with like 600k HP. And these are things that aren't really worth putting your dots on. You see, I'll dot this guy, I'll dot those two 3 million HP guys, and then I'll like send a Shadow Crash and I'll send a Halo. But aside from that, I'm not really going to try and damage those tiny guys very much, because Shadow Priest is not great at instant AoE damage. We have 3 spells that do it. That would be your Shadow Crash, your Halo, and technically Void Eruption, because your Void Eruption will do a bunch of damage instantly to things. But all 3 of those spells, really, you're not trying to... There are other classes that do try to do a ton of damage all at once, but with the current iteration of Shadow Priest, you're just trying to do a lot of damage over a decent amount of time, right? It's more of a war of attrition. Your damage really starts ramping up once you have your dots on the things that are going to live a while, like this diamond, moon, triangle, and the one that I'm targeting, square. You want to get your dots on those 4 things, and then yeah, send out your instant damage, your Halo, your Shadow Crash, and if you're going to get into your CDs, if you're playing Ancient Madness, I think it's still called Ancient Madness, the talent that when you go into Void Eruption, when you first erupt, it makes your crit go way high. You want to save your Shadow Crashes for after you get into Void Eruption, immediately after, so that you get a critical strike out of it, hopefully, which means it'll do way more damage, right? But in the cases that you're not going to send your Void Eruption, it's fine to just send a crash right off the rip, right? And then follow up your crash with a Halo, because your Halo will do more damage to anything that has your dots on it. That's what your mastery is, right? So on this pack, it's totally fine to send CDs because you got a ton of things that you're hitting, right? This Withering Totem thing, the reason its name is a different color is because of these debuffs it puts out. Because, like I said, we're in a tyrannical low-level key, those debuffs aren't hitting too hard, but it will keep doing that. So the longer that thing is alive, the worse. So it is important to kill it pretty quickly, prioritize it. Okay, so there's not much to say here. We're just making our way through all these little lasher groups. This is a pot that you can interact with. I'm not going to use it because I have Purify Disease, but if you're playing a class that doesn't have a disease dispel, and if you're in a group with people who don't have a disease dispel, you should suggest that they grab that, because when you interact with that pot, it'll give you a potion, an extra action button, and that extra action button will dispel a disease from you. So you can use that in groups that you don't have a Purify Disease. However, as a Shadow Priest, the talent setup that you can get from Twix, that I'll link in the description below, in that talent setup, it's very, very easy to drop 1 point in the Fade cooldown reduction. Drop 1 point in that so that your Fade is on a 25-second cooldown instead of 20, and then take that point that you dropped and put it into Purify Disease, and you'll just get a free Purify Disease, basically. You lose very little for a nice Disease Purify. Although, I would say it's not super needed until you get to the very last boss of this dungeon. Okay, so now we're on the Treemouth boss, the second boss in the dungeon. He has a couple things that he casts. He's got a frontal called Vine Whip, he's got this Grasping Vines, and he's got that other frontal called like Spit, Infectious Spit, I think it's called. Let's see. So I get hit by that Vine Whip. I'll talk about that in a second. Oh no, yeah, the Infectious Spit is just like a thing on the ground. It's Decay Spray. So every so often you'll get this Decay Spray on you. It looks like it's a frontal, but you don't really have to point it away from people. All that matters is that you stand still, because it's going to spawn these oozes around you. And you want those to be in a predictable location, so don't be like running around like crazy. With this Vine Whip, this is more of a tank thing, not so much a you thing, but when that Vine Whip comes out, the easiest way for your group to handle it probably would just be it always goes on the tank. So when it goes on the tank, everyone just run away from the tank. Don't make the tank run around, because if the tank is trying to dodge you, he's like running to the side to try and dodge you with it. It's likely, or more likely at least, that he'll run into somebody else and hit them. As long as you take it upon yourself to get out of the way, it's your personal responsibility, right? As long as you don't move, you won't get hit. Or as long as the tank doesn't move, you can move and avoid getting hit. Hopefully I said that okay. I realized that I stumbled on my words a little bit there. Okay, so you'll notice right now the boss is enraged. That's because when this grasping vines thing happens, he needs to eat somebody every so often. Somebody needs to be consumed like this, or else he'll get really grumpy and he'll start hitting really hard. You can do that. Our Demon Hunter was trying to do that a bunch of times. He's dead because you can only do it so many times. I'm not sure yet. I haven't tested this, but I think as a Shadow Priest, you might be able to just disperse. That was a huge lay on hands, by the way. You might be able to just disperse and go in there and take the dot. You might want to disperse like right when it goes off so that you're in disperse throughout part of the dot. But more likely you want to just have like a Holy Paladin bubble it or something like that where you're not the one who has to take it. Like right here, I'm pretty sure our Holy Paladin just goes in and dies because somebody needs to take it and nobody has anything. Oh no, she doesn't. She just dies to other stuff. Okay. So then, yeah, basically the boss is almost dead. I know I haven't talked too much about my rotation so far, mostly talking about like higher level strategy stuff. That's because the Shadow Priest rotation is pretty straightforward and not very situation dependent. There are some caveats there. There are times where your rotation needs to change a little bit. Something I'll mention, our healer released because the graveyard does update to be over here, but not until after this RP. So our mage was saying, release, the graveyard's right here. And that's technically true, but not yet. So she released and got sent back to the Shadow Realm. What I was saying though, your rotation will change a little bit depending on how many targets you're fighting and things like that. But in general, if you were to only ever do your single target rotation and throw out Shadow Crashes and Halos as your two ways that you change your rotation, if those were the only changes you made, and then you just did your single target rotation on whatever mob you're hitting at the time, you would do good damage, like pretty competitive damage in Mythic Plus. The rotation is not super complicated anymore. Like I said, there are some caveats and ways that you can min-max and do more damage, but for the most part, as long as you have dots on a bunch of things and you're pressing your ghost generating abilities, like Devouring Plague, Mind Blast, Void Bolt, things like that, as long as you're pressing those abilities and then just doing your single target rotation, you'll do good damage because your ghosts will just carry a bunch of your damage on everything else. I didn't send my CDs on Stink Breath, although I maybe should have. You can see we're not doing very much damage as a group, so this lasted a long time. Something else I'll mention, if you want to go back and see, Stink Breath does this cast every so often that is a frontal. He'll turn and target a random player and just cast, I think it's called Stink Breath on them, and it's like infinitely long. So if you're on the bridge and it's pointed towards you at all, you could be like not even on the bridge. You could be really far away and it'll still hit you. Like the very first one hit me, which is why I say maybe go back and watch that. What you want to do is choose a side of the bridge that the ranged is going to stand on when it goes on them, and then use the other side of the bridge as the safe spot. So, for example, what me and the mage could have done is, if the breath goes on me or the mage, we're going to run to the left side of the bridge, and when the breath is coming out but it's not on me, I'll run to the right side of the bridge. So something I'll mention as well, there are these skulking gut stabbers in this section going between these two bosses. Those are stealthed mobs that pat around, and they're in similar locations every time. You can avoid them, but you need to be aware of them in case they do come out and kill you, like they came out and bopped our paladin. So that's something that you need to keep in mind as well. Hopefully I don't die here. This dot is pretty painful, and I've got my corrupting file hurting me. Yeah, I think I'll be okay. So yeah, as you can see, I mean, this dungeon is not super unforgiving. The timer's not super hard. And I mean, it is just a 16, not the highest key in the world, but at the time of doing this, it was the rank 25 Brackenhide Hollow in the world. So it was not the easiest key. But you know, there are caveats and everything to that. This was like the first day of keys, and all of the high end players were in raid or whatever. So we're going into this pack. We're about to get to the hyena boss. His name is Gutshot. So there's a bunch of hyenas going into this. Usually with the hyenas, they're not very dangerous. All you got to be aware of is they will fixate, and if they fixate on you, you don't want to be getting munched on by a hyena, so run away. I'm saving my CDs right now because right after this pack, we're going to get to the... Oh, maybe there's a couple bears and then the boss? I'm not sure. And there's these hawks. Okay, yeah. So we got these vultures and this bear, and I thought there was a second bear. So yeah, I sent my CDs on this pack. This was probably a mistake because this pack is going to die pretty quickly, and then I'm pretty sure that's the boss's hyena. So I'm pretty sure we're just about to go into the boss. This is not the worst mistake. It's better to accidentally use your cooldowns too many times than it is to accidentally not use your cooldowns enough. Yeah, this is the boss. So this is another 3-target fight, although the hyenas don't really need to die too badly. You do need to kill them quickly-ish so that you don't get overrun by them, but it's not a huge deal. Like on the first boss, all 3 of the targets need to die ASAP, because that's how you win the fight, right? But for this boss, these hyenas can die just kind of slowly. These ensnaring traps will come out every so often, and then the hyenas will target people and start chasing them. All you do on this fight is you place the traps out somewhere that you can run hyenas through them. So these hyenas come out. Excuse me, if we keep an eye on them, you'll see we run them right through this ensnaring trap. The traps do a ton of damage to them, and then they'll eventually die. So this one is fixated on our Holy Paladin. She goes and runs behind this trap. They're not moving, so she's kind of just out there for no reason, actually, because we weren't letting them move. But we should have been. Anyway, so yeah, so that's basically all you do on this fight, is you put these traps around, wait for the hyenas to come out, run the hyenas through them. Like this meat toss just went on that mage. That means that the mage is being chased. And then, yeah, I mean, this is the entire fight. You just do the single target rotation, put both dots on both hyenas every single time they come out, and then, yeah, just do your single target rotation into the boss, and don't ever worry about focusing the hyenas, because they'll die. You'll do good damage to them with your apparitions, and they will die. So right here, our healer goes down. This is something that I would always suggest, not just when a healer goes down, but anytime anyone dies, especially if it was a really sketchy pull, hence why people are dying, and everyone's like pretty low, you should be the one rezzing people. You've got high haste, and your healer, it lets your healer heal people, right? So it's easy to just sit there and wait for your healer to heal people, and you're like sitting at 10% HP, and you're like, what's going on? Why aren't they healing me? The answer is you should be rezzing and letting your healer heal you and everyone else while you get the person up, or you get the people up, or whatever. Now, obviously, there's like, if there are 3 people dead, your healer can res all of them at the same time, which is better than letting you res 3 one at a time. But, you know, so that's just one thing worth saying. Here you need to be very careful to walk past all of these guys. There's a ton of trash in this dungeon. You can see we're already at 100%, and we still have trash that we have to pull to finish the dungeon. You can skip a bunch of this stuff, right? Like this War Scourge, we won't pull him. All of that stuff over there, we won't pull them. So it's very important that you keep those things in mind and you're careful about where you're going. Also, I will mention our route in this dungeon. If you were paying attention to what packs we pulled, our route in this dungeon is not the best for a couple reasons. First, because this dungeon hasn't been like analyzed super hard by the high end people, so there aren't like Dratnos routes. I mean, I imagine there is a Dratnos route for it already, but there aren't like a ton of well-known routes for how to best do this dungeon and get the exact perfect amount of count. So this is a disease. You can see I just hovered over it. It said disease. I can dispel those. It'll go on anyone who's in your circle. I think when you dispel it, it will. So like Ollie Mage back here, I'm just going to stay out of his way. I'm going to dispel him as soon as it goes on him, and then it's just gone. We don't have to worry about it. And then yeah, we're just focusing down these War Scourges. And then our goal right now is to get to the last boss while killing as little trash as possible, because we're just wasting time. We don't have to kill any more trash, but it's impossible to get to the last boss without killing some more trash, right? So just going to be as quick and as seamless as possible. I'm not sure maybe because this is a pat. I was going to say I'm not sure why we pulled this, but it's probably because they're walking back and forth, and when we're on the boss fight, we don't want these guys to randomly walk into the boss fight as well. This final boss is by far the most deadly of the three. Is that true? Yeah, I'll say it's the easiest to outplay. So it comes down to Hatclaw's Warband versus this last boss. Both bosses are very, very deadly and do a ton of damage, but this Decatriarch, you can avoid pretty much all of the damage in this boss fight as long as you play correctly. That is not true about Hatclaw. Hatclaw's Warband, you have to take a bunch of damage. So that's where I would say that the distinction is. So this Choking Rock Cloud, very, very important that you never touch it. If you ever touch this thing, not only will you get silenced for a second, but also you'll get a permanent debuff that does a bajillion damage. As soon as these totems come out, they need to die instantly. If that Rotting Burst cast were to get off, and I think one does get off later in this boss fight, if that gets off, it puts that same debuff that this thing puts out, where you get a permanent debuff, it cannot be dispelled, and it does a ton of damage, like I was saying. So I'm pretty sure maybe it could be ice blocked. I'm not sure, actually. That big AoE damage that it just did, that's a great time to fade, press Desperate Prayer. Yeah, so I'm going to try and give this a wide berth, and then I'm going to just focus. As soon as this totem is out, I switch to it. I'm hitting it with everything that I've got. This one is going to go off, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, just barely. So this is the debuff I'm talking about. If you watch, all of us are just getting chunked like crazy. And this will never go away. This is for the rest of the fight. So it's going to be a long, difficult fight now. And the more, I mean, it stacks. So the more times that this comes out, the worse, right? It's very important that you kill these totems ASAP. So you can pre-immune them too, I think. If you were to ice block and then the thing goes off, I think the ice block prevents the application of the stack. We barely kill that one in time with my sweet Shadow Word Death. But yeah, so I think you can pre-immune them, but oh yeah, you can ice block it off, he just did. But yeah, you can kill these totems fast enough. This is going to be the thing that keeps people from timing this key on a really, really high Tyrannical. I barely survived that. I'm saving my Vampiric Embrace for when I have all my CDs so that I can do more healing to people. I'm setting out Halos this time, not for the damage aspect like I was before, but for the healing aspect. And then yeah, this is the entire fight. I'm pretty sure the boss goes away at 20%. So that's going to be it for this key. Oh, maybe it's a little under 20%. That's going to be it for this key. Thank you for watching. If you had any questions or comments or concerns, please leave them in the comments below. I do read those and I do respond sometimes at least. And I look forward to making more of these videos as the season progresses. Okay, I guess it's way past 20%. Okay, it's around 5%, it looks like. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. Thank you for watching. I hope you had a great time, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!